Inside a busy auto workshop, a van rises on a hydraulic lift when its weight begins to shift off balance. Between two trees in a tight backyard, a compact loader places a trunk under tension when a slight shift redirects the stored force without warning. On the paper mill floor, a massive roller stands in place as a forklift approaches carrying another roll, and the space between them vanishes fast. Inside the steel workshop, a glowing hot rod moves across the line, and in a split second, the space around it closes into a danger zone. Inside a chemical storage area, flammable materials sit across the floor when a sudden ignition causes flames to travel quickly along the surface. Outside a house, a ladder is set beneath an open window, and the entire setup shifts in a split second. At the lifting area, the load came off the ground smoothly for a moment, then the balance shifted, the rigging gave way, and the suspended zone turned dangerous in seconds. At a metal recycling yard, loose wire around a ground-level winding machine turned scrap handling into an under-machine draw-in hazard. At the construction loading area, an excavator reverses along a truck bed, and one extra movement brings it dangerously close to the edge. On a snowy construction site, an excavator bucket swings across its working radius, and the safe clearance disappears in an instant. On an elevated processing platform, a cone hopper and exposed rotating shaft turned close adjustment beside the guardrail into an active entanglement path. Inside a cramped workshop, equipment builds internal pressure, then a sudden release sends force outward in an instant. A heavy pallet rolls down a slight slope, and the moment control is lost, its momentum turns it into a high-mass moving load. Do not position yourself in front of or beside a moving load on a slope. Always stay clear of its travel path and control zone. Inside the processing area, a routine solvent transfer changes in seconds as flammable vapor finds an ignition source and the space rapidly ignites. Inside a fabrication bay, a suspended metal sheet swings from the crane line and sweeps across the active work area. Clear the full swing arc before any suspended sheet is lifted, turned, or repositioned. Large panels can move unpredictably when the pick point is off-center, the crane line shifts, or tension changes during handling. In a paper processing area, a direct contact point on the running machine entered the active feed roller intake path. Inside a metal pipe workshop, access crossed the live lathe area while loose material moved beside an exposed chuck spinning under torque. On a backyard ladder, a thick tree branch is cut while positioned above a ladder when the branch begins to fall directly into the drop zone below. Never cut a load-bearing branch while positioned on a ladder beneath it. Always control your position and the fall zone before the cut. In a crowded warehouse aisle, a forklift, stacked cargo, and a small utility cart create a blindside traffic conflict beside the loading path. Separate forklift lanes from small cart traffic. Stop lifts before crossing shared aisles, secure elevated loads, and use spotters, horns, mirrors, and clear right-of-way signals. Inside a textile coating line, a moving fabric roll and low support frame turn a close adjustment beside the roller into a draw-in exposure. Roller clearance must be established before close adjustment near moving fabric. Stop, isolate, and verify the line before any access crosses the frame or enters the nip point pull path. Guarding stable platforms and define safe access sides keep adjustment work outside roller movement. On a rooftop edge, a ladder is being repositioned sideways when one base point loses grip and the entire setup shifts without warning. Do not reposition or walk a ladder sideways at height. Always secure it and maintain 3-point stability before moving. At a titanium processing plant, a suspected oxygen leak near large vessels turned the platform into a rapid flame and pressure release hazard. Oxygen systems require distance-based verification before access. Isolate supply, ventilate, test atmosphere, remove ignition sources, and keep the area controlled until gas concentration and pressure are verified. Inside a cluttered machine shop, live maintenance near rotating equipment and loose material turned routine adjustment into an entanglement hazard. Rotating shafts, belts, and gears require stop, isolation, and zero-motion verification before maintenance. Loose material, tools, and accessories must remain outside moving equipment until guards are secured. Inside a machine shop, a large rotating fixture released a loose mechanical part into the lathe front release path. Rotating work requires guarding, verified fasteners, secure fixtures, and low-speed testing from a protected position before full operation. Keep the front path clear until stability is confirmed. During residential tree removal, a cut trunk section under tension turned the standing stem into a sudden swing and drop hazard. Tree section removal requires secured rigging, planned lowering, aerial access control, and cleared drop and swing paths before the final cut. Standing timber should not become the access surface. Once stored, bending force remains active. A tall trunk stores leverage when the upper section is cut while still partially attached. Once the hinge releases, gravity and stored bending force rotate the wood unpredictably. Control the tree section before the cut is finished. Use rigging, tie-ins, and planned lowering instead of standing on unstable wood. In a crane setup area, suspended equipment lost support and dropped, turning the ground below into a sudden load fall path. Suspended equipment requires verified pins, slings, hydraulics, locking devices, landing supports, and cleared drop paths before release. Access below the load must remain closed until the equipment is fully grounded and secured. In a garage, a raised truck is accessed using ladders for support when a sudden shift in position breaks the stability of the setup. Never, ever use unstable access like ladders as work platforms. Elevated work demands secure, fixed support. In a container yard, a reversing forklift and ground-level crossing route overlap, turning a routine aisle into a compression path hazard. Separate forklift travel lanes from walking routes. Use marked crossings, spotters, horns, speed control, and confirmed visibility before moving near containers, blind corners, or parked equipment. During roadside unloading, a front loader raises a bucket of stone blocks when one block suddenly rolls free from height and moves straight down into the operating zone below. Never, ever raise unsecured materials in a loader bucket above an occupied operator station. On a roadside beside a flatbed truck loaded with massive concrete slabs, one piece suddenly shifts toward the edge without warning. Do not walk or stand beside unsecured heavy loads. Always maintain a safe distance from suspended or stacked materials. On a cluttered construction floor, steel rods advance into a bending machine, where the feeding mechanism pulls material forward through a high-force pinch zone. Always make sure you do not place your hands near feeding or rotating material. Always maintain a safe distance and use tools or guards. Inside a construction space, a long metal prop is pushed upward into position from a ladder when the overhead setup becomes unstable. Do not install or adjust vertical supports without securing load paths and communication. Always stabilize, align, and control from the base up. Cramlington Manufacturing Area, a 60-meter lathe wrapped rubber around a steel mandrel while rear access remained open to rotating parts. Long lathe operations require fixed perimeter guarding, separated rear access, and controlled positioning before rotation begins. Feed, mandrel, and rotation paths must remain physically isolated from access routes during operation. At a metallurgical plant, a crane boom moved across the work area and contacted an aerial platform, turning the lift path into a platform collapse hazard. Crane boom travel must be separated from aerial platform access. Verify swing radius, visibility, spotter control, exclusion lines, and platform clearance before any lift movement begins. A crane boom carries momentum through its swing radius, and even slow contact can transfer force into a raised platform. Once platform support shifts, gravity and load imbalance control the movement. Map the boom path before the crane moves. Keep platforms clear of every swing, lift, and collision path. In a rebar fabrication area, a long steel bar near the bending machine released stored spring energy across the work path. Long rebar requires far end control, sweep path clearance, guides, and secured feed alignment before bending begins. The recoil arc must remain clear whenever stored spring energy can be released. On the delivery truck, a leaning pallet of bottled water began to tip. Then the entire stack shifted faster than control could be maintained. Once a load starts tipping, the hazard zone becomes the most dangerous place on the site. Unstable pallets need controlled handling, clear exclusion space, and the right equipment setup so the load can settle safely without anyone stepping into its path. Truck work area. Crossing movement entered the active travel path of a moving truck with limited front clearance. Truck routes require separated walkways, marked crossings, spotter control, horn signals, mirrors, speed control, and confirmed right-of-way before shared path movement is allowed. Large trucks have limited front visibility and need distance to stop once moving. When crossing paths overlap, the clearance gap can close before the vehicle path is controlled. Shared traffic paths require confirmed separation. Stop points, signals, and marked crossings keep movement predictable. In a dusty aggregate yard, a front-end loader moved past stockpiles as access entered the active travel path without clear separation. Loader movement requires separated access routes before equipment starts. Stockpile yards need defined travel lanes, marked crossings, spotter control, horn signals, mirrors, and clear right-of-way wherever visibility is limited. Inside a narrow excavation trench, loose soil, steep cut walls, and an active excavator bucket turn the trench into a sudden soil movement exposure. Trenches require sloping, shoring, or shielding before access. Keep spoil and excavator loads away from edges. Use spotter control and clear the trench during bucket movement. In a panel fabrication workshop, a large sheet near the roller table shifted from guided movement into an uncontrolled swing path. Large panels require verified balance, mechanical assist, clear footing, and a controlled laydown path before repositioning. Wide surfaces, long edges, and high centers of gravity can become unstable once one side rises. Inside an automated production cell, open guarding and live machine movement turned quick adjustment access into a trapped clearance hazard. Automated cells require stop, isolation, interlock control, and zero motion verification before access begins. Guards must remain closed and setup work must stay outside. Press, robot, slide, and fixture paths while motion energy remains active. Automated cells can restart through stored pneumatic, hydraulic, or programmed motion energy. Once a cycle begins, slides, fixtures, and arms follow the program path with force beyond manual control. Live machine cycles require isolation before adjustment. Lock out, verify zero motion, then clear or adjust the equipment. Inside the brake area, a small cooler fire had only a few seconds of advantage, and that was enough for the flames to start owning the room. Fire response begins with instant access. Place extinguishers on the travel path. Keep them visible and unobstructed. Train everyone to recognize the nearest unit fast and build a response layout where the first action is immediate suppression instead of confusion and retreat. On an unfinished construction floor, column work beside an open edge turns a walking surface into sudden fall path exposure. Guard every open edge before work begins. Install rails, covers, lifelines, controlled access, marked walking paths, and spotter control around exposed floor openings. A forklift lifts a pallet from the truck bed, and in one sharp shift, the load slides sideways and drops to the ground. Load control starts before the lift even begins. The pallet has to be fully supported, centered on the forks, and balanced for the full travel path, because once the weight drifts off its center line, the whole lift can break stability in a split second. At the conveyor machine, a quick reach into the moving intake area turned routine clearing work into an active pull-in risk. Conveyor safety starts with separation from motion. Guard the in-running points, stop and isolate the belt before clearing material, use tools instead of direct reaching, and keep access panels controlled so the machine cannot pull the task into the moving path. Inside the crowded gas cylinder storage room, a small flame appeared near the wall with pressurized cylinders and hoses positioned throughout the space. Fire control in cylinder shops starts with layout discipline, accessible extinguishers, clear walking paths, separated full and empty cylinders, leak checks, ventilation, secured valves, and trained response steps that turn the first seconds into controlled action instead of panic. In a woodworking shop, a panel glides across a table saw, then a sudden kickback sends the motion sharply backward. On a quiet street, energized equipment inside a service enclosure suddenly releases a burst of light and energy across the surrounding space. Don't approach energized electrical equipment without proper arc-rated protection and controlled distance. Electrical energy can release violently in an instant. On a dirt construction road, a truck rolls forward, then sparks suddenly begin trailing from beneath the chassis. Do not operate a vehicle with dragging components or unsecured parts. Friction and impact can escalate instantly. Inside a garage, a ladder is positioned for access. When the base suddenly slips sideways without warning, ladders can lose grip instantly. If not secured, always stabilize the base and ensure proper footing before use. Inside a lab test area, a battery cell enters thermal runaway, releasing heat, gas, and sparks as the reaction escalates in seconds. Do not approach or handle a battery undergoing thermal runaway. Maintain distance and use controlled containment systems. In a transport yard, a raised truck cab during maintenance drops, turning the undercab access space into a collapsing clearance hazard. Before undercab maintenance, install rated cab props and lock out hydraulic lift points. Tilt cylinders alone are not supports. Verify mechanical restraint, isolation, and no release control before entry. At a rural tanker washing yard in Campo Grande, a routine wash on a connected tanker truck changed in seconds, and the entire job site became a pressure, vapor, and hazard. Tanker cleaning begins with verification before water, tools, or workers enter the zone. Identify the previous cargo, drain and isolate the tank, ventilate the space, test for flammable vapor, control ignition sources, manage residues through approved containment, and keep every worker positioned outside the release and spill path. Inside a heavy industrial furnace bay, a small flame at the furnace face expanded into a rapid thermal release across the floor area. Furnace face work requires purge verification, ventilation, fuel isolation, pressure control, remote handling, and clear heat release boundaries before approach. Hoses, tools, and access routes must remain outside the release path. Inside a carpentry workshop, a leaning stack of MDF sheets turned panel movement into a sudden domino collapse hazard. MDF sheets require racked, restrained storage and controlled single-panel removal. Use mechanical support, clear runout space, and avoid releasing panels from unsecured leaning bundles. At the electrical panel, a routine task on energized equipment triggers an arc flash in a split second, releasing heat, light, and pressure into the space. Electrical work stays under control when the hazard is engineered out before hands go in. Isolate the source, verify zero energy, match arc-rated PPE to the available fault energy, use insulated tools, and treat every exposed conductor as a high-energy release point until the system is proven safe. Inside a box truck at a busy loading bay, barrel unloading turned unstable when footing suddenly shifted beside the open trailer edge. Barrel unloading near an open truck edge requires stable flooring, controlled drum movement, edge protection, and a clear transfer path before rolling, lifting, or repositioning begins. The trailer threshold becomes the exposure point when drums, uneven surfaces, and limited space combine. At a yard loading area, a suspended load being positioned onto a truck dropped as access entered the underload path. Suspended loading requires cleared drop paths, verified rigging, landing position control, and signal coordination. Underload access must remain closed until the load is fully landed, blocked, and secured. A suspended load stores gravitational energy while supported by rigging. If the connection slips, balance shifts, or lifting control changes, the load moves straight toward the lowest open path. Suspended loads require closed access below. Land, block, and secure the load before the area reopens. Inside a busy production workshop, loose material near an exposed fan and conveyor line turned packing work into an entanglement hazard. Fans, shafts, and conveyors require secured loose material before nearby work begins. Rotating equipment must be stopped and isolated before cleaning, adjustment, or access around exposed moving parts. On the factory floor, a heavy piece of material was being suspended through a crowded handling lane when the lifter lost control and the load zone became active instantly. Material handling needs a controlled lift corridor from start to finish, rated lifting gear, secure attachment points, balanced load positioning, slow movement, trained signal control, and a fully cleared path around the suspended material. At a facility entrance, a car lost control and struck the gate, turning the gate frame into a sudden collapse path. Gate-side work requires vehicle separation, barriers, setback zones, speed control, and protected access before activity begins near movable gate structures. A gate can become unstable when vehicle impact transfers force into hinges, posts, or guide rails. Once support fails, gravity pulls the structure down through its open path. Separate traffic from gate-side work. Protect protect the gate area before vehicle movement begins. On a rigging floor, suspended equipment swung across the work area, carrying stored load energy into the active access zone. Suspended load paths must be controlled before lifting, rotating, or repositioning begins. Clear the swing area, use tagline guidance, verify communication, and keep access outside every possible load arc. In the container yard, a heavy container handler rolled through a tight lane while visibility was limited, and within seconds, the blind zone became an active hazard. Pedestrian safety in a container yard depends on total traffic separation, marked walkways, controlled crossing points, spotters, alarms, mirrors, cameras, and a clear stop before entry rule whenever people are near moving equipment. On an elevated industrial platform beside a large tank, an unsecured metal frame is used as a resting point. And in one sudden shift, the frame moves out of position. Temporary metal frames, loose sections, and partially secured structural members are not resting points. Elevated work areas need designated sitting, standing, and access surfaces that are fixed, load stable, and verified before anyone puts weight on them. During tire inflation, the pressure built quietly. Then the wheel assembly suddenly released its stored energy in a rapid pressure failure. Tire inflation must be treated as high-energy work, not a routine air-up task. Safe practice starts with checking tire and rim condition, confirming the correct pressure range, using a restraining device or inflation cage, and inflating from a protected position with remote control of the airline. In the workshop, a handheld grinder looked steady for a moment. Then a sudden kickback drove it upward and turned the task into a split-second hazard. Grinder work stays under control when the wheel matches the job, the guard remains correctly positioned, the material is firmly secured, and the operator keeps a stable two-handed grip with body position outside the kickback line. At the refilling point beside the tanker, a routine transfer changes in an instant when the connection ignites and the fuel zone rapidly becomes active. Refilling stays controlled when the transfer point is treated as a high-risk ignition zone. Secure every hose and fitting, verify the connection before flow starts, manage pressure carefully, contain spills fast, and keep the area protected from sparks, heat, and static buildup throughout the task. At the canal recovery site, the truck is lifted out of the water when the lift geometry changed in an instant, and the whole operation shifted from control to instability. Recovery lifting works only when the crane, the ground, and the load are all working inside the same safe envelope. Match the crane capacity to the real lift radius, fully stabilize the outriggers, rig the load for balance, and keep the swing path and drop zone completely clear before the truck leaves the water. On a road transport job, an oversized tank rolls beneath overhead cables while the lines are manually lifted, and the whole route becomes a moving hazard. Overhead, clearance work belongs to planning, not improvisation. A safe transport route uses measured clearances, utility coordination, insulated lifting equipment, trained spotters, controlled traffic, and a full exclusion zone around the load, the trailer, and every cable crossing. In the service area, an ammonia setup released a visible vapor cloud, and the work zone disappeared under a fast-moving chemical vapor. Ammonia handling needs controlled isolation, trained response, and immediate area control. Secure the cylinder, verify hose and valve condition, use compatible fittings, keep ventilation ready, wear chemical-rated protection, and move the response team upwind while the source is shut down safely. On a roadside curb, a heavy metal unit is moved onto a small truck when its center of gravity shifts past the stability limit and it begins to tip. Do not manually control a heavy load once it passes its balance point. Always use proper equipment and controlled unloading methods. On the roadside lifting job, the crane hook went loose and turned into a swinging pendulum, moving across the sidewalk under stored energy. A free hook needs the same control as a suspended load. Secure the hook before movement, keep tension managed, use tag lines when needed, inspect the latch and rigging connection, and clear the swing radius before the boom changes position. Inside the cargo ship, the excavator reached over the wall to remove soil while a backloader worked below. And within seconds, their movement paths overlapped in the blind zone. Shiphold excavation needs one command system, one movement plan, and one clear signal chain. A trained spotter should control the work zone from a visible position. with radio communication, fixed travel lanes, equipment separation, and an immediate pause whenever the operator loses sight of the loader or the bucket path. The excavator boom creates a long reach with limited visibility, especially over the vessel wall. When two machines move in the same confined hold, swing radius, bucket momentum, and blind zones can overlap in seconds. Blind lifting and digging turn equipment into guesswork. Spotters, radios, and controlled movement keep the ship hold operation coordinated. Inside the material mixing room, a flammable liquid transfer looked routine until a static charge found the vapor cloud and ignition occurred at the drum. Flammable liquid handling runs on charge control. Bond the drum, ground the container, use anti-static transfer hoses, slow the flow rate, ventilate the vapor area, and verify that every pump, nozzle, and mixing tool is rated for explosive atmospheres before transfer begins. Inside the warehouse, a height demo turned into a swinging fall arrest event, and the harness system became the only thing controlling the movement. Work at height belongs to engineered protection, not improvisation. Use certified anchor points, correctly fitted harnesses, measured lanyard length, guarded edges, clear landing zones, and a rescue plan ready before anyone leaves a stable platform. A fall arrest line does more than stop vertical motion. It can also create a pendulum swing if the anchor point is offset. That swing adds speed, impact potential, and uncontrolled movement toward walls, racks, and equipment. Fall protection is a system, not a costume. Anchor, clearance, training, and rescue planning keep height work under control. At the gas refilling point, one loose hose turned a routine cylinder transfer into a fast-spreading vapor cloud, creating a fast-spreading vapor cloud across the work area. Gas refilling needs locked-in connection control before flow begins. Secure the hose coupling, verify the valve seat, use leak checks, keep cylinders upright, control ventilation, and create a clear response zone where the first move is shutting off the supply at the source. On the storefront installation job, a long metal rail was being fixed above the sidewalk when its support slipped and the entire piece moved downward through the work zone. Overhead, installation needs controlled support before the first fastener moves. Use temporary bracing, tag lines, staged lifting points, secured ladders, clear ground exclusion zones, and one signal lead to coordinate every adjustment from above and below. Outside the steel yard, a forklift carried long rails across the roadway, and a passing motorbike approached the extended load path as it crossed the roadway. Long steel transport needs road control beyond the forklift itself. Use a spotter at the road edge. Flag both ends of the rails, block traffic during crossing, move at crawl speed, and make the full load length visible before it enters a shared route. A long rail load creates a projection hazard far wider than the forklift body. From the side, the bike may see the machine too late, while the rail ends are already stretched across the travel lane. A long load can become a road barrier before the forklift is fully in view. Control the crossing, mark the ends, and keep traffic stopped until the load clears. At the loading dock, an unsecured pallet load shifted near the back of the truck, turning the tailgate area into an instant drop zone. The space behind a loaded truck needs control before people enter it. Check the cargo from a safe angle. Brace loose pallets, release straps from the side, keep workers clear of the tailgate, and only step into the zone once the load is confirmed stable. During bridge removal beside the river, the excavator worked from the broken edge until the structure failed and the machine shifted into the water zone. Bridge demolition needs the machine standing on verified support, not failing structure. Set a demolition sequence, confirm deck capacity, work from stable ground or a planned platform, use exclusion zones along the collapse line, and keep the excavator positioned where the remaining structure can carry its full weight. A suspended load was being guided onto the truck when the rigging gave way and the unit dropped straight into the loading zone. Suspended loads need a controlled landing zone, verified rigging, and disciplined positioning around the load path. The guide worker should stay outside the fall zone, use a tagline from a safe angle, and the lift team should confirm sling condition, hook engagement, load balance, and clear signals before the load travels over the truck bed. An unfinished floor looked solid from the outside until the upper floors suddenly lost structural integrity and the frame began to collapse in sequence. Structural safety starts with the load path. Every floor, column, beam, support connection, temporary brace, and roof load must be verified as one complete system before heavy equipment, material staging, or continued construction adds more force to the frame. A building under construction depends on temporary and permanent supports working together before the structure is fully locked in. When steel support, load distribution, or staged weight exceeds the frame's capacity, failure can travel floor to floor in seconds. A structure gives warnings through design, inspection, and load limits before it ever moves. Respect the engineering, control the roof loads, and verify the frame before the next stage begins. Inside the fabrication workshop, hot work started on a large tank, and one hidden vapor pocket created a dangerous internal pressure condition. Tank hot work begins with atmosphere control. Drain residues, isolate every connection, purge and ventilate the vessel, test for flammable vapor, monitor LEL continuously, issue a hot work permit, and keep the crew outside the blast path with a trained fire watch in position. Inside the work area, a slab cutting job happened right beside an open drop, and one unstable concrete section turned the floor into a sudden failure zone. Slab cutting needs support, distance, and controlled sequencing. Shore the section before cutting, mark the cut line clearly, keep workers positioned away from the opening, manage the tool cable, and remove each piece only after the slab is stable and the landing area below is cleared. High on the wall, a suspended work seat shifted without warning, and in one instant, the system lost support. Only the harness engaged to stop the downward motion. Working at height demands total stability under the body and total reliability above it. The seat or platform, the anchor point, the lanyard, and the rescue plan all have to work as one system because a harness is the backup, not the platform itself. Once the support surface shifts, gravity takes over immediately and the body's weight transfers straight onto the fall arrest system. The harness stops the downward motion, but it also leaves the worker suspended, which turns the event into both a fall arrest and a rapid rescue situation. A harness can stop the drop, but stable access and a ready rescue plan are what complete the protection. At height, secure footing, certified anchors, and fast response turn a close call into a survivable outcome. On a roadside demolition site, the excavator bites into the structure, and suddenly the collapse zone extends beyond the building line as debris spreads toward the roadway. Demolition only stays controlled when the danger zone is bigger than the collapse zone. The exclusion perimeter is fully enforced, and nearby roads are isolated from falling material. Once public access, moving vehicles, and structural breakup share the same space, the job shifts from demolition to uncontrolled exposure. Inside the cannabis processing room, one invisible vapor cloud met an ignition source, and the entire workspace flashed into a rapid pressure release event. Cannabis extraction and solvent handling belong inside engineered controls. Closed-loop equipment, approved ventilation, gas detection, bonded and grounded containers, explosion-rated electrical systems, trained operators, and a clean, ignition-controlled zone around every transfer point. On a moving truck bed, a load was being handled from above. Then one sudden slip in the stack turned the unloading zone into an immediate instability hazard. Truck loads are not stable work platforms. During loading or unloading, the material has to be secured, supported, and controlled, while workers stay on firm footing with a clear access plan and coordinated handling. As the load shifted, its center of gravity changed abruptly, and the surface moved with it. Once friction gave way, stability was lost instantly, and the support zone disappeared at the same time. A slipping load can turn a routine unload into a drop hazard within seconds, stabilize the material, control the movement, and keep workers off the load itself. At the loading yard, a worker failed to secure the truck door, and the cargo shifted outward in seconds. A moving load depends on three things staying under control at all times: a locked door, stable stacking, and proper internal restraint. When any one of those barriers fails, the trailer opening instantly becomes a drop zone where gravity takes over. As the truck moved, the cargo shifted toward the rear and pressed against the unlatched door. Once the barrier gave way, the load's weight and momentum carried the stack outward in a rapid chain spill. A trailer is only as secure as its last latch and its last cargo check. Locked doors, restrained loads, and final walk-around inspections stop small oversights from becoming major incidents. Beside the high-rise construction site, the tower crane began to lean, and within seconds, the entire boom swept downward across the skyline. A crane works by balancing load, counterweight, and boom angle around a narrow stability point. When the force exceeds that balance, the structure can lose stability, causing the boom to move downward along its failure path. A crane works by balancing load, counterweight, and boom angle around a narrow stability point. When the force exceeds that balance, the structure can buckle or overturn, sending the boom down through its collapse path. A crane collapse begins when the balance leaves the structure. Capacity checks, stable foundations, and controlled lift geometry keep the skyline safe. On a busy road in Agra, a tractor trolley rolled forward like any normal trip. Then the surface beneath it gave way, and the load zone dropped into the opening. Heavy vehicle movement depends on the strength below the wheels. Routes carrying tractors, trolleys, trucks, or construction loads need road condition checks, drainage control, barricading around weak patches, and traffic diversion when cracks, sinking, or hollow sections appear. Behind a reversing pickup, the blind zone closed quickly, and in one sudden movement, the space between two vehicles disappeared. Reversing operations work best when the spotter stays visible, off the vehicle's direct travel line, and fully clear of pinch points. Clear hand signals, driver acknowledgement, controlled speed, and a fixed exclusion zone turn spotting from guesswork into real protection. On the production line, access was made into an active machine area, and the moving fixture closed suddenly within the work zone before the task could be pulled back. Machine access needs full control before hands enter the work zone. Use guarded access points, lockout or pause controls, two-hand safety systems, and proper tools for adjustments so the operator stays separated from the clamp, press, or moving fixture. In a split second, the swing meant for the rod crossed out of its intended path, and the strike landed outside the target zone. Striking tasks need one clear target area and one clear body position. The person guiding or stabilizing the piece should stay outside the swing path, while clamps, holding tools, spacing, and verbal timing controls keep the job aligned without placing a coworker in the line of fire. One lift turned into a full stability failure when the crane's balance broke and the whole machine lost stability. Every crane lift begins with ground conditions, load weight, boom radius, and outrigger setup. Use a verified lift plan, confirm the crane is working within chart limits, and create a stable footprint before the load ever leaves the ground. A split-second interaction with a moving gate turned the entrance into a pinch zone instantly. Treat every sliding or swinging gate like moving equipment. Keep hands clear of the travel path, use the proper control point, and let the gate's motion stop before stepping in to manage it. Once a heavy gate gains momentum, its force travels through the frame and closing edge. When the gap narrows, the available space disappears quickly, leaving little time for correction or repositioning. Moving gates demand distance, timing, and respect. Clear hands and clear positioning are what keep a routine entry from becoming a crushing hazard. At the cafe table, the man set the kettle right on the edge, and one unstable placement turned a normal drink moment into a sudden liquid spill. Hot liquid safety starts with the person handling the container. Kettles, cups, and pots need to be placed fully on stable surfaces, away from edges, with handles turned inward, and the surrounding area kept clear before anyone relaxes around the table. At the construction site, a tractor pulled a heavy concrete mixer across rough ground, and one uneven slope turned the trailer into a rollover hazard. Towed equipment needs a stable route before movement begins. Keep the path level and compacted, match towing speed to the terrain, use proper hitch control, avoid sharp pulls on slopes, and clear workers away from the travel and rollover zone. A concrete mixer carries weight high and unevenly, especially when the drum and frame shift on rough ground. Once the wheels climb uneven terrain, the center of gravity moves outside the support base, and the trailer loses stability. Rough ground can shift a load before the tractor feels the danger. Stable routes, slow towing, and clear zones keep mobile equipment upright. Inside the office corridor, a reach-through happened just as the door swung shut and the closing edge turned into a sudden hand trap zone. Door safety depends on awareness around the swing path. Keep hands away from hinge gaps and closing edges. Use the handle or push plate. Control the door's movement and make sure anyone passing through has cleared the frame before the door returns. At this construction site, the lift started like a normal pick. Then the load came up, the balance shifted, and the crane suddenly lost stability to one side. As the boom reaches out with a load, it creates a stronger overturning force and pushes the crane's center of gravity outward. If that force exceeds the support provided by the outriggers or the ground, the crane can lose stability very quickly. As the boom reaches out with a load, it creates a stronger overturning force and pushes the crane's center of gravity outward. If that force exceeds the support provided by the outriggers or the ground, the crane tips sideways very quickly. A crane lift is a balance test every second the load is in the air. Strong setup, solid ground, and accurate load planning keep that balance under control. A large suspended bulk bag swings over a packing table. Then the holding ropes fail unexpectedly and the load descends suddenly. The moment a discharge spout is opened, load stability changes. Stand clear of the release path because flow shifts balance before your brain registers movement. At the drill station, a reach entered too close to the spinning head, and the rotating part instantly turned that moment into an entanglement hazard. Rotating machinery is unforgiving because contact can become a pull-in event in a split second. When materials enter the danger zone around a spinning chuck or spindle, the machine can capture that contact and move it rapidly toward the point of operation. The rotating part generates friction and torque at the contact point, which creates a strong grabbing and wrapping action. Once that pull starts, the motion of the machine can overpower human reaction almost immediately. Safe work around rotating equipment starts with clear hand placement, secured clothing, and proper work holding. A spinning machine gives no warning window, so guarding the danger zone is what keeps the task under control. Inside the electrical work zone, the equipment looked quiet. Then one hidden energy source turned the panel area into a sudden electrical discharge event. Electrical work begins with proof, not assumption. Isolate the supply. Verify zero energy. Discharge stored power. Check for backfeed. Use the correct rated tools and PPE, and keep the work area controlled until every conductor is confirmed safe. Inside a busy car wash bay, a moving conveyor track guides vehicles forward across wet concrete, creating a continuous pull zone along its path. Do not place your feet near moving conveyor tracks. Always stay clear of pinch points and guided wheel paths. Conveyor tracks operate by applying a constant mechanical pulling force that moves objects along a fixed path without interruption. Any object or surface that comes into contact with the moving track is subjected to this continuous force, which does not pause or adjust for unexpected interference. In a wet environment, water significantly reduces the coefficient of friction between footwear and the ground, making it easier to lose stable footing. This combination of reduced traction and continuous motion means that even a small slip can bring a foot into the moving path. Once contact occurs, the conveyor's steady force can quickly draw objects into pinch points where moving and fixed surfaces meet, creating a rapid and difficult-to-escape hazard zone. Moving tracks don't stop for mistakes. Motion continues without hesitation. Stay clear of the path, control footing, and never combine movement with low traction zones. On a loading ramp, a skid steer ascends a trailer at an angle, shifting its center of gravity outside the wheelbase and tipping sideways instantly. Do not operate or load compact equipment on uneven ramps or unstable surfaces without proper alignment, traction, and load balance control. As the skid steer ascends at an angle, its center of gravity shifts toward the downhill side, reducing the effective support area of the wheelbase. This uneven distribution of weight creates a lateral tipping force that increases with both slope and elevation. Limited traction on the ramp can further reduce control, allowing small movements to escalate quickly. Once the center of gravity moves beyond the machine's base of support, gravity takes over, causing a rapid sideways tipping motion that is difficult to recover from. Angles turn control into instability faster than expected. Align the machine, secure the path, and don't move until stability is guaranteed. A routine moment at the machine changed instantly when an exposed rotating part created a spinning hazard zone. Keep rotating equipment fully guarded, secure loose clothing and hair, and isolate the machine before any cleaning, adjustment, or close contact. Safe work around moving parts depends on distance, guarding, and controlled shutdown. Suspended above a truck bed, a heavy steel structure begins to tilt. And once gravity takes over, there's no stopping the direction it chooses. Stay clear of suspended loads. Assume balance can shift at any moment, and gravity will act instantly. A suspended load is stable only when its center of gravity remains directly below the lifting point. Even a small shift can create rotational torque that causes tipping. Once the load passes its balance point, gravity accelerates the rotation, converting potential energy into kinetic energy with rapidly increasing force. Suspended loads don't fail slowly. They pass a balance point, then move with a force. If a load can swing or fall into a zone, that zone is already hazardous. A bulldozer easing down a trailer ramp, then the balance shifts and gravity takes over instantly. Do not operate heavy equipment on an unstable trailer or uneven ground without proper support, alignment, and load control. Heavy equipment like bulldozers has a high center of mass, especially when positioned on an inclined surface such as a trailer ramp. As the machine moves forward, its weight shifts dynamically, and even a small misalignment or uneven surface can push the center of gravity outside the machine's support base. When this happens, stability is lost instantly, and gravity begins to create a tipping moment that increases rapidly. The slope of the ramp adds a forward and downward force component, accelerating the shift and reducing traction between the tracks and the surface. Stability is everything when mass and weight amplify every small imbalance. Level the ground, secure the setup, and control every movement before gravity takes over. Inside a workshop, stacked metal sheets shift near a running machine, and gravity takes over in a split second. Do not handle or stand beside unsecured heavy materials near operating machinery. Stabilize loads before any interaction. On a factory floor, a rotating roller machine runs at speed, its pinch point forming a powerful draw-in zone near the surface. Do not reach into or lean over active rotating rollers. Always isolate, guard, and stop motion before interaction. On a construction site, a 50-kilogram cement bag is released from height, accelerating downward into the drop zone below. Never attempt to catch a falling heavy load. Always control descent using proper handling methods and clear drop zones. On a flatbed truck, a forklift starts driving off without proper support, right as its center of gravity shifts past the edge. Do not unload a forklift without a stable ramp or dock. Always ensure continuous ground support before moving. In a front yard, a partially cut tree is pulled with a rope. When stored, tension sends it falling unpredictably across the drop zone. Never stand near or within the fall radius of a tree under tension. Always clear the area and control the direction before cutting. On a backyard deck edge, a ladder is positioned for access. When the base suddenly shifts without warning, do not stand on unstable ladders or overreach while elevated. Always secure the base and maintain 3 points of contact. In a cramped service room packed with extinguishers and gas cylinders, internal pressure rises beyond the rated limit without warning. Do not tamper with or overpressurize a fire extinguisher beyond its rated limits. Always use calibrated equipment and controlled procedures. Inside a robotics lab, a suspended robotic arm suddenly powers on, and its first movement doesn't stay within its safe zone. Do not energize or activate robotic systems without securing the work envelope and ensuring all personnel are outside the hazard zone. Industrial robotic arms operate using high-torque electric or hydraulic actuators designed to move payloads with precision and speed. When suspended, the system's center of mass is no longer fixed to a rigid base. Instead, it behaves like a pendulum. This introduces an additional degree of freedom, allowing gravity and inertia to amplify any motion initiated by the motors. At the moment of activation, even a small commanded movement or calibration pulse can generate rotational torque at the joints. Because the arm is hanging, that torque transfers into angular momentum around the suspension point. The longer the arm and the heavier the payload, the greater the moment of inertia, meaning once motion begins, it resists stopping and continues to swing. Robots don't recognize proximity, only program paths and applied force. Define and secure the work zone before activation, or the machine will move without regard for space. On a quiet street, a large metal gate is pulled closed. Then it suddenly loses stability and collapses without warning. Do not operate large gates without ensuring hinges, tracks, and supports are secure. Assume failure if stability is compromised. On a steep metal rooftop covered in snow, one step loses friction and gravity takes control instantly. Use fall protection on sloped or icy roofs. Secure yourself before stepping onto low-friction surfaces. Snow and ice drastically reduce the coefficient of friction between footwear and the surface, especially on smooth materials like metal roofing. On an inclined plane, gravity creates a constant downslope force. Once friction is overcome, acceleration increases rapidly, making recovery nearly impossible. On a slope, gravity is constant. Friction is the only thing holding you in place. Secure yourself before stepping, or the surface will decide your movement without warning. A flooded washroom floor, electrical equipment runs across a wet floor, where water spreads current and expands the hazard zone instantly. Do not touch or operate electrical equipment when standing on a wet surface or in pooled water. Water reduces surface resistance and spreads electrical potential across the floor, effectively enlarging the conductive zone. When contact is made with a live or faulted machine, current flows through the lowest resistance path to ground, often through the body. Wet floors turn small faults into widespread electrical hazards instantly. Eliminate moisture, isolate power, and never assume a surface is safe around energized equipment. A quiet roadside with a stationary vehicle. Then, in a split second, a fast-moving car turns the area into an active traffic hazard zone. Do not leave a vehicle exposed on an active roadway without clear warning signals, visibility measures, and safe positioning. A workshop filled with machines and stacked units. Then a sudden electrical arc ignites a fast-spreading fire in an instant. Operate electrical systems only with proper isolation, ventilation, and protection. Keep ignition sources separated from flammable materials at all times. Electrical faults can create arcs when current jumps across a gap between conductors, producing extremely high temperatures that can exceed several thousand degrees in a fraction of a second. This rapid energy release generates intense heat, bright plasma, and molten particles that can easily ignite nearby flammable materials. In enclosed or poorly ventilated spaces, heat and combustible gases accumulate quickly, increasing pressure and accelerating flame spread. Across available fuel surfaces, the arc also sustains itself as long as energy is present, continuously feeding the fire and expanding the hazard zone beyond the original ignition point. One spark is enough when the environment is unprepared. Ignition spreads faster than reaction. Control every source, isolate combustibles, and never allow energy and fuel to meet uncontrolled. A tire shop, a mounted wheel under pressure, then in a split second, the stored force releases instantly. Handle pressurized tires only with proper restraint, inflation control, and safe positioning. Maintain distance from any potential release path. A busy production floor with conveyors in motion, then a sudden shift at the edge sends material dropping into an unprotected zone. Keep clear of open pits, hoppers, and unguarded drop zones. Use barriers, fall protection, and controlled access to isolate the hazard. On a roadside loading area, a pickup stacked high with mattresses starts to lean, and the entire load shifts in. Seconds. Do not climb or work on top of unsecured or overstacked loads. Stabilize and secure materials before any access or handling. Stacking lightweight but bulky materials like mattresses increases height without adding a stable base, which raises the overall center of gravity of the load. As the stack gets taller, even minor external forces, such as wind, movement of the vehicle, or shifting weight, can create a tipping moment. Because the load is loosely secured, there is little resistance to lateral movement, allowing the upper layers to shift independently from the base. Once the center of gravity moves beyond the edge of the support area, gravity rapidly accelerates the entire stack outward. This creates a cascading effect, where each shifting layer adds momentum, causing the entire load to collapse or fall in a chain reaction. Height and poor securing create hidden instability that builds without warning. Stabilize every layer, secure the load fully, or the entire stack will shift beyond control. On a quiet roadside, a flatbed truck drifts off its path, then collides with the bridge edge. Do not assume control is guaranteed. Maintain speed discipline and full attention, especially near unprotected edges. When a vehicle drifts off its path, inertia keeps it moving in the same direction, creating lateral momentum that pushes it outward. At speed, this force increases quickly, reducing the chance of recovery. If the vehicle strikes a weak or unprotected edge, the impact force can exceed the structure's capacity, causing immediate failure. Without a barrier to absorb or redirect the energy, the vehicle continues moving beyond the roadway, turning a minor drift into a major loss of control. Control loss turns roads into hazards in an instant. Manage speed, maintain direction, and never rely on weak edges to stop momentum. At a construction site beneath an elevated structure, a crane lifts a large concrete panel and the load suddenly swings off control. Suspended loads create dynamic swing zones, maintain distance, and enforce exclusion zones around all lifting operations. Inside a hotel lobby, a decorative structure suddenly breaks, sending debris outward and leaving the area unstable in seconds. Do not hesitate after a structural failure. Immediately move away from the hazard zone and assess for secondary risks. When a structure breaks, stored energy releases unpredictably, and debris may continue to fall or shift. Delayed reaction increases exposure time within an unstable zone. Shock delays action, but hazards keep moving without pause. React immediately, create distance first, and never stay inside an unstable zone. Inside a narrow garage, a tractor engine is hand-cranked near a brick wall, leaving no clearance for sudden reverse force. Do not use your body position or force in a direction that puts you directly in line with hard surfaces when manually starting machinery. Always maintain a safe clearance zone. A forklift decelerates sharply with a raised load, and in that instant, the weight shifts forward past the point of recovery. Do not brake sharply or travel with an elevated load. Keep loads low and stable to maintain control of the center of gravity. At a loading ramp, a truck bed blocks rear visibility, while movement builds in the blind zone behind it. Do not stand in the direct path or blind zone of a moving vehicle or loading platform. Always maintain a clear escape path and safe position. At a night construction site, an elevated lift operates at height, when instability shifts the center of gravity past its balance point, causing a sudden overturn. Never rely on elevated equipment stability without verifying ground, conditions, load limits, and secure setup. Elevated lifts raise the center of gravity significantly above the base, making the entire system more sensitive to even small imbalances. Uneven ground, shifting loads, or sudden movement can push the center of gravity outside the support area. Once this happens, gravity creates a tipping force that increases rapidly with height and weight. Because the lift is already elevated, the leverage effect amplifies the instability, causing a fast and uncontrollable overturn once the balance point is crossed. Elevation reduces stability the moment the center of gravity rises. Verify ground, load, and balance first, or the system will overturn without warning. On a drilling floor, rotating equipment spins at full speed. Then the motion suddenly redirects sideways within its operating radius. Stay clear of the operating radius of rotating or energized equipment. Maintain a strict exclusion zone at all times. Inside a busy workshop, an unsecured gas cylinder near active equipment suddenly converts stored energy into rapid, uncontrolled movement. Secure gas cylinders at all times. Use chains, caps, and stable positioning to prevent uncontrolled movement. Inside a renovation site, a large floor tile under installation receives uneven force, causing a sudden lateral shift and loss of stability. Do not apply force on unsecured tiles without stable positioning. Maintain controlled posture and support when setting materials. During installation, large tiles rest on a thin, low-friction adhesive layer before they are fully set, making them highly unstable. When uneven force is applied, the tile can shift laterally or tilt because there is minimal resistance holding it in place. The smooth surface beneath reduces friction further, allowing sudden movement with very little warning. Once the tile begins to move, its weight and size amplify the instability, making it difficult to regain control and increasing the risk of a rapid shift or collapse. Unsecured tiles move the moment force is applied. Instability reacts instantly. Stabilize before pressure, or the surface will shift faster than you can recover. Inside a storage area, a heavy load is moved across a floor when the surface fails under the weight, collapsing without warning. Do not assume flooring can support heavy loads. Verify surface strength before moving weight across it. Inside a room, multiple workers hold a heavy overhead beam in place by hand. Then one shift changes everything. Do not rely on manual holding for heavy overhead loads. Always use proper supports, bracing, or lifting equipment. In a store aisle, a small ladder shifts beneath stacked glass bottles. Then the balance point gives way instantly. Do not use unstable ladders or overreach at height. Maintain three-point contact and ensure secure footing before elevation. Shifting body weight beyond the ladder's base moves the center of gravity outside its support area, causing tipping. The sudden loss of balance transfers force into nearby objects, triggering cascading instability. Height amplifies instability. Small shifts become system-wide failures. Control your base, control your reach, or the entire setup will collapse around you. In a narrow alley beside shuttered shops, a vehicle moves through a tight clearance, and the space disappears in an instant. Keep clear of the space between moving vehicles and fixed structures. Maintain safe distance and preserve an open escape path. When a vehicle moves through a confined space, the gap between it and nearby structures becomes a dynamic pinch zone. Even small steering changes or shifts in position can instantly reduce that clearance to zero. As the vehicle continues moving, its mass and momentum create a strong compression force within that narrowing space. Because the motion is continuous and the clearance is minimal, there is almost no time to react once the gap begins to close, turning tight spaces into high-risk zones. Tight spaces turn motion into instant compression zones. Keep your distance, protect your escape path, and never step into a closing gap. Inside a busy auto shop, a tire under tension suddenly snaps back with force. Keep all body parts and tools out of the line of tension when working with compressed or flexed components. Stored energy can release instantly. When a tire is compressed or flexed, it stores elastic energy within its structure as the material deforms under force. This stored energy remains contained until the tension is suddenly released, at which point the tire rapidly returns toward its original shape. The release converts stored energy into fast motion, generating a snapping force along the line of tension. Because this transition happens instantly, the movement is unpredictable and difficult to control, creating a high-risk zone directly in the path of release. Stored energy releases without warning. Tension turns into motion in an instant. Control the line of force, stay out of its path, and never assume it will hold. Around a compact industrial machine, components are positioned close to moving parts. Then the mechanism suddenly cycles while material remains inside the operating zone. Never place hands inside an active machine without full lockout and control. Unexpected motion is always a risk. Inside a workshop, material feeds into a rotating machine, where loose items can catch and be pulled inward into the mechanism. Never wear loose gloves near rotating machinery. Always keep hands clear or use proper tools designed for feeding. Rotating machines create in-running nip points where surfaces pull material inward. Gloves increase surface friction, making them easier to catch on moving parts. Once the glove contacts the rotating component, it acts like a hook, instantly grabbing onto motion. The machine's continuous rotation generates pulling force stronger than human resistance. This creates a rapid draw-in effect, pulling material toward the pinch zone. Unlike rigid objects, gloves deform and wrap, increasing the chance of entanglement. The motion does not pause, so the pulling force continues once contact begins. Loose gear gets pulled the moment it contacts moving parts. Rotation doesn't release once it grabs. Keep all loose items clear, use proper tools, and never enter a rotating hazard zone unprotected. In a kitchen workspace, a large pressure cooker builds internal pressure near a wall. Then the containment suddenly fails without warning. Operate and open pressurized equipment only after confirming full pressure release and system integrity. Control energy before interaction. Pressurized vessels like pressure cookers store energy as steam builds inside a sealed space, increasing internal pressure with rising temperature. This compressed steam holds significant stored energy, even when there are no visible signs of danger. If the seal fails or is opened, prematurely, the pressure rapidly equalizes, causing the steam to expand instantly. This expansion releases energy in all directions, generating a powerful outward force that can displace nearby objects and rapidly expand the hazard zone. Pressure builds silently. Release happens fast. Confirm zero energy. Control the system, and never trust a sealed vessel without verification. On a roadside incline, an excavator crawls onto a small dump truck bed. The balance shifts instantly. Undersized or unsecured platforms cannot support shifting loads. Match capacity, align correctly, and control load transfer before moving equipment. As the excavator climbs onto the truck bed, its center of gravity shifts upward and forward, concentrating weight over a smaller support area. This change increases torque on the truck's suspension and reduces overall stability, especially if the platform is narrow or uneven. Any slight misalignment or movement can push the center of gravity beyond the support base, triggering a tipping moment. Once this balance is lost, gravity and the machine's mass combine to accelerate the instability, making recovery nearly impossible. Heavy machines don't forgive unstable setups. Mass turns small errors into instant loss of control. Match capacity, secure the platform, and verify balance before every movement. On a cluttered factory floor, a running machine draws material through rotating components. When the motion suddenly increases, pulling everything inward at high speed. Do not reach into moving machinery without full shutdown and lockout. Rotation doesn't slow down for reaction time. Don't forget to share what you learned today in the comments. Your insight could save a life. Take care.